Hi everyone, I'm Stan from Eagle Vision. I'm here with Jayde Deverson. Jayde, welcome.
Thank you, Stan. Great to be here.
So I met Jayde probably about a year or so ago, and Jayde is a fascinating designer. He focuses on building an interior design, but specifically for automotive collectors. And I really wanted to have a chat with Jayde around his process for custom design, because everybody handles that part differently. In this first episode, we're going to talk about discovering the soul of the design, so I guess the initial concept. So Jayde, tell us a little bit more about Deverson Design and how you started in it.
Oh, okay. So I've been designing interiors, landscapes and buildings for 30 years on and off, and had a few breaks in between. I came back into it about 15 years ago and fell straight into focusing specifically on my hobby, which is collecting cars and restoring cars, and then decided that that's exactly how we're going to service. That's the product
who you wanted to work with, yeah.
So work with those people, and in that time it's built from designing a garage that got quite a bit of media attention. It was based on an Art Deco style, and from there it just grew, and so I've been focusing on that ever since.
Fantastic. And so where do you start with that concept? Where do you go from? Where's your first point?
Oh gosh, okay. So typically the client will contact me, generally a little bit excited that they now are in the position to curate their collection of cars nicely. So they've achieved the status, they've got to the point in life, now they've got 5, 10, 20 cars and they need to house them. So by the time they've got to me, they're already convinced, they've got many ideas about what they'd like to do. Really it's then about having that initial meeting and the discovering and focusing on what's important, and then establishing whether they're going to keep all of the cars in one side, if there's going to be a long-term increase in the collection, because in most occasions my clients would tell me, I've only got 5, it's not going to get any more than that, and then before we've even finished the project I bought 2 more. So we need to look at the long-term strategy of how we're going to manage the collection, and then we get into the passion side of it, the aesthetics, what the building will look like, and then how we'll do the interiors.
And that was what brings me to the next question, which is, you mentioned the word soul.
Oh,
soul
yes.
of the project.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, well, look, the garage is just quite distinctly different from a home, because a home has to do many things for the entire family. Typically, the garage is I won't say a selfish place, but it is about the person. And so I'm creating almost a biography of that person's life when I design an interior for them. The building has to, generally it will flow with the architectural language of the outer project, the home space, but the interior is very, very specific. You wouldn't put your collection of used pistons from race engines in the kitchen. You would be looked at oddly, but in the garage, to do that nicely and to do it well, as opposed to just leaving them on the shelf, that's special. And it goes well beyond that. So the soul of the project is really going to be the person's soul.
Okay.
And that's why it's so important to get to know that person really well before we start getting too far ahead of the design process.
And so I guess what are some of the questions that you then ask to help you get that understanding?
Oh, it's probably less about the questions and more about the conversation, and listening. So that's going to be, so if I had to boil it down, a few questions would be, what got you into cars? Or motorcycles, or aircraft, whatever it is, because a garage could be a water garage or an aircraft hangar. So really,
and maybe also collecting wine, or they may be collecting something else.
Absolutely.
Along the way.
Every garage, everyone who's passionate about their garage and collect that, they'll have the other things as well. The big things that feature music all the time.
Right. Okay.
All the time. Television's not so much. It's more about the sound when you're working, or just appreciating your collection. But wine as well, whiskey collections. I've designed beautiful displays for whiskey, which is something that you've helped me with the 3D work. And watches. Watches are a big thing as well. Okay. So understanding everything and then teasing it all out. A meeting could be a little bit tight, a little bit formal for the first 5 minutes, but then we really get into it, and then the sparkle comes up. That's right, and then you get the passion coming through. So that's when it builds up.
Do the collections of the wines or the music, do they typically go in line with the types of cars the person is collecting?
No.
Really?
Everything is eclectic. We will have, now I've had one collector years ago who was Porsche everything.
Right.
It was Porsche watches. So it was, for him, it was about primarily the car and its technical excellence. But then it was also all the branding. And it was, he lived Porsche. Which was fantastic. I love that sort of client as much as I love the eclectic client who has a vintage Bentley or a brand new Jeep or 4 Lamborghinis spanning 30 years, and then contrasting that as a collection of vintage trucks. So.
So how do you piece all these things together? That's the soul, that's the essence of it, right?
Yeah, it's you've got to make sure that you find a way to bring all of these things and put them into space and curate a collection with harmony. What I'm doing is half museum curation. Some of the cars are museum pieces that don't see the light of day, but 90% of these cars are out regularly. So it's important to get, from a practical point of view, curate these vehicles in such a way that they are accessible, usable, and are protected from temperature, humidity.
Sure. And we'll talk about design and all the technical aspects in later episodes, but here was really just more about the soul, and I think you've kind of covered it perfectly. It's that eclectic mix of things and then bringing some harmony into that.
Yes.
So the person walking in there will feel at home.
And you know, when the visitor comes in, they'll see,
right,
this is such and such, this is him, because we've got some pictures on that wall of his racing exploits, or there's a mural on this wall that show things, and these cars are all that person. So yeah, it's the biography of that person's life in an automotive sense.
Yep, wonderful. Look, that's all that we sort of wanted to cover in this episode. Thanks so much for watching. Next time around, we'll talk more about design. See you again.